Hi, I'm indie fantasy author Melinda Kucsera, and I'm back to read Chapter 21 from Curse Breaker Enchanted. But first, I just want to announce that the third book in the Robin of Larkspur series, which is titled Rogue Ranger, is now up on pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Kobo, all the places. So go and check that out. It was quite a wild ride to write that book. The first book in the Robin of Larkspur series came out in September of 2019. It was part of the USA Today best-selling box set called Rogue Skies. And the sequel, which was Rogue Knight, came out in October of 2019. And then the characters just went completely off the rails. And it took from then until I finished writing the book, I think in December of 2022, to find a way to write the book without them breaking the rules too badly, or not in a way that I couldn't keep the story going in some way. And it was a huge problem because the Robin of Larkspur series, at least the first 5 or 6 books of it, are prequels to the Curse Breaker series. So they take place 3 to 4 years before Curse Breaker Enchanted. So anyone who is in Curse Breaker Enchanted has to survive those 5 books. And the way the characters were going, that was not going to happen without some kind of deus ex machina, or me reaching in and fixing things. And I won't do that. If they're going to be stupid, I'm not going to save them. So we finally came to an agreement because the characters won't do what I want them to do. There was a whole outline. They could have just followed the outline and we wouldn't have had this problem. The book could have come out a lot sooner, but they decided, no, we're not doing that. So we came to a compromise and I was finally able to finish the book. So that is now on pre-order. It is a wild ride. The 4th book is looking to be even wilder because there's this massive twist in the 2nd chapter. And that's the reason why the 3rd book had to end where it did, because you can't end on that kind of a massive twist. It's really wild. So that should be out later this year, unless the characters fight me on every page, and then who the hell knows. But my goal is to get it out in 2023. I really want to get all of the books in her series out that will at least take it out of being a prequel, so that it can either go its own direction or, at least not be beholden to what's going on in the Curse Breaker series. So I don't have to care if they break all the rules and destroy everything. As long as it doesn't affect Sarn and the characters in the Curse Breaker series, Robin and her crew can do whatever they want. I just want to get them to that point so I don't have to worry about them doing something world-endingly bad. But before we do that, I just need to thank our patrons who make all of this possible. Thank you so much, Glenda Andre, for being a part of this journey. And if you want to join our Patreon community, you can go to patreon.com/Melinda, Kucsera. That's just my name with no spaces. And you can join at any of the levels. And all the levels, you get a copy of the finished book once it publishes. So patrons got a copy of Rogue Ranger actually yesterday. Now we're going to go back to Curse Breaker Enchanted, and I'm going to read chapter 21, and then we'll have a little discussion of it afterwards, as we've been doing. And let's get to some much saner characters. Let's see where we left Ran and Sarn in the last book. So, again, this is Curse Breaker Enchanted. It's the first book that I ever published. I've written other stories before, but this is the first one that I have published. It's not perfect. It's my baby. I've rewritten it 3 times. I'll probably rewrite it another 100 times. Who knows? So, here we go. Chapter 21. Why the hell can't the Fletchers fletch their own arrowheads? Jallister asked. Where are these bloody arrows? We've been all over this level looking, and they still haven't appeared. Are you certain this fool even knows where to look? And why send us? There are dozens of lads with nothing else to do who could trek around for hours down here. We've got important things to do. Where the hell is Sarn when I need him? He's at least quiet, Grigori said, aggrieved by his loquacious companion. Nothing could have induced Grigori to take Jallister on an errand, except a direct order from Jurlo. Where is he? He's indentured. Fetching and carrying are fine for him. He's got nothing better to do. Besides, he's much stronger than I am. Will you shut up? I can't hear the man, and he might have found some. Say again, Lanier. Do you have a lead? Frustration kicked Grigori's voice up a notch, sending echoes of his question to bounce around the storeroom. Not a lead, but, well... Lanier broke off, and footsteps resounded. Dirk? Dirk, where are you? Lanier raised his voice and repeated his call over Jallister's continued grumbling. Part of Sarn wanted to break out into hysterical laughter. Could a rescue show up in a usable form next time? If either Grigori or Jallister saw Rand, they'd take his son away. Sweat beaded on Sarn's brow as fear looped molten bands around his chest and squeezed. Wizards, blizzards, and bloody damn gizzards. How could he prevent such a disaster? For starters, he could duck behind that wall of crates so he wasn't visible anymore. Sarn draped his cloak over himself and his son and hunkered down. Magic uncoiled inside him and stretched its wings over them, though who knew if it helped. Papa? Rand shifted in his grip, and his son's concerned eyes caught his. Are you okay? Rand touched his face and calmed his magic. The fire constricting Sarn's chest eased, and he could breathe again. Just in time, too, because a door creaked and muffled voices sounded in the tunnel outside the storeroom. Sarn shut his glowing eyes. What's happening? Rand whispered, half strangling Sarn. Sarn shushed the boy, since he had no answer, and loosened Rand's grip on his neck. Sorry I hurt you. I'm scared. Don't be. Just be quiet and still. I'll get us out of here. Then we have breakfast? Yes. Now hush. Rand nodded, and his forehead smacked into Sarn's jaw. His son had a hard head, just like his father. Sorry. Rand's fingers probed the new bruise. Did they hurt you? I'll be okay. Sarn felt a padlock click closed from across the room. His sixth sense walked its pitted surface, seeking weaknesses, but found none before he redirected it. No way would he exit that way. Too many witnesses. Excuse the mess. An accident happened inside there, but we'll get it cleaned up. Dirk's muffled voice assured someone. Sarn's head snapped up as claws clicked on the stone floor and a rat icon appeared on his map. What an interesting complication. Would Ratwoman show up next? Sarn rose from his crouch and peered over the boxes hiding them. Where was the rat? He pulled up his map just as the rat icon shattered, sending a wave of tiny, writhing icons scurrying away. 1 threat down, 5 to go. Keep talking, Jallister. The hairs on the back of Sarn's neck stirred. He pivoted. Air currents and escape routes went hand in hand under the mountain. What are we looking for? A way out. Rand nodded and narrowed his eyes in concentration as his head turned. A gray shape coalesced, dropping the temperature in its wake. Sarn's breath misted in the air, and in his arms his son shivered. He rubbed Rand's back to warm him as a wrongness wrenched his guts, doubling Sarn up. A spectral hand floated past, and Sarn retreated from its grasping fingers. Next, the ghost boy's head popped into view and drifted toward his disembodied arm. His leg followed with a part of a torso close behind it. What happened? Sarn stared as the ghost boy gathered his scattered parts and reconnected them. Why didn't they save you? Was there something wrong with you? Dull green eyes fixed on Sarn. They begged for help, and he nodded. Of course he'd help. But first he had to untangle the events of the last day and a half, if he could. What is it? Rand extended a curious finger toward the ghost boy, but the ghost shuddered and fell apart, scattering its limbs to the 4 corners of the storeroom before they winked out. Twice the specter had gone to pieces when his son was present. Rand was too young to use magic, wasn't he? The realization chilled Sarn as he searched his son's eyes for the glow of active magic and found none. Relieved, he held his son tight. Let the magic leave the tyke alone for a while longer. Papa, what is he? Rand meant the ghost boy. He's something I need to deal with. Rand's face scrunched up, pretending more questions, none of which Sarn had the answers for right now. We'll talk about this later, after I find a way out of here. When the walls all proved to be solid, Sarn scanned the ceiling out of sheer desperation. Air was entering from somewhere. What does a way out look like? Sarn pointed at what he'd seen as a voice intoned, Im Meyer Arator. A warning flashed on his map. How will we reach it? Rand asked as he pointed to the trap door 40 feet overhead. Nausea punched Sarn in the stomach as he studied his options. One wall had brackets attached to it, but it was too far from the trap door, and the other wall was a solid granite block with no handholds. Sarn couldn't free climb that without magical help. Why was escape never easy? Stay close to me. Sarn set his son down. Short on time, Sarn ignored the sealed crates and riffled through the open ones instead for anything he could fashion into a weapon. A grappling hook would be awesome, but all he found was a box of belts. Sarn connected 2 together and tugged on them. Would they hold his weight and his son's? He doubted it. On to plan B, then. Sarn shucked off his boots and tied the laces together. What's that? Rand pointed at something in between two rolled-up carpets. As the gray shape boiled up from the floor, flies covered its back and ants flocked to its limbs, and cockroaches bunched together, forming its thorax and head. More insects piled on, fusing into a chitinous exoskeleton complete with mandibles. Sarn swallowed bile at the sight. What vile magic held this abomination together? There were no mages anymore, not like in the old tales. That's trouble. Sarn ripped strips from his cloak and tied them together into a crude harness. While he attached his boots to it, threads extruded from both sides of the tear, reweaving a garment that had become more magic than cloth over the years. Moments later, his cloak was whole again. The creature turned intelligent, compound eyes on Sarn. Green lightning snaked over his knuckles, but the elemental magic in his veins felt insufficient when compared to the black waves of power mashing an uncountable number of insects into the man-shaped piece of felt staggering toward him. Sarn doubled over and vomited stomach acid and stayed down when his magic warned him about an incoming projectile. A second later, a metallic ball whizzed past his head and bounced off the creature's forehead. Rand shot the creature in the left eye, then took out the right one, and cowered against Sarn's leg while he searched for more ammunition. Excellent shot. Sarn smiled despite their situation as he straightened up. He had a bold little boy with excellent aim. The enraged insect man hissed, then charged, giving Sarn enough time to yank his son out of the way. Insect Man crashed into a heap of debris, sending a bolt of shimmering green fabric flying. As the Insect Man thrashed, the fabric tangled around him. He scratched at it with his claws, but that tough fabric refused to tear. Climb on my back and get your arms and legs under these. Sarn pointed to the makeshift harness crisscrossing his chest. And hold on tight, we're getting out of here. How? Magic. Not his preferred option, but Sarn dropped into a runner's crouch by his son. He'd used more magic in the last 2 days than in the last 3 years combined, and he didn't know what to think about that. Once Rand was in place, Sarn pushed up into a zigzagging run around the struggling creature. Insect Man had almost freed himself by the time Sarn hit the wall and rushed up it. Thanks to his magic, witch-like rocks, his bare feet stuck to the stone, and so did his hands, allowing Sarn to defy gravity. Magic surged through Sarn, dumping fire into his veins as he crawled up the wall as if it were the floor. The green glow of his eyes intensified, but Sarn ignored that and concentrated on his goal, the trap door. Nothing else mattered except reaching it before the insect man transformed into something nastier. Sarn cursed when his hand slipped off the stone wall. He couldn't concentrate on climbing and consult his map, not while his magic focused on the abomination crashing into things below. But his magic had a solution for that. The wall undulated and extruded blobby arms to embrace him. Sarn slapped the granite hands gripping his shirt, but they kept flowing down the wall toward the ascending rat. Stop it, I don't need your help, I have a plan. But his damn magic paid no attention to his orders. It had a plan of its own, and to hell with what he wanted. Sarn gnashed his teeth to keep from vomiting. His stomach heaved each time he came within 10 feet of the climbing rat or insect man. Stop it! Why is it taking us down? Down is bad! Rand pointed to the stone arts holding on to them. I don't know. Sarn didn't know what to do about it. If his magic refused to help him, then he was trapped. It's okay. Papa will get us out of here. Rand patted the stone hand fisted in his tunic, and it quivered. A barrage of images shot through Sarn's head from the connection his feet maintained with the wall. It wasn't his magic fighting him. It was Mount Eredrin. Great. A command broke free from the tumult in his head. Destroy it. How? Sarn asked the mountain, but he didn't get a response. Abomination, said his magic. Yes, it was, but what the hell could he do about it? Hold on tight, Sarn said to his son as the stone arm stilled. Why? Because I'm about to do something stupid. Nothing was ever fair when magic got involved, but Sarn didn't bother to complain about it. Why? Rand asked again. Because being a spectacle was his special skill in life, but Sarn refrained from pointing that out. Instead, he said, On 3, I need you to hold as tight as you can to me. Okay. 1. A section of the wall pushed out, providing Sarn with a platform. 2. Magic rushed to his feet, encasing them in green fire. 3. The mountain let go. Sarn jumped, tucked, and tumbled. He slammed both feet into the abomination's head and sent a bolt of green fire edged with silver into the creature. As the bonds holding the insect man together broke, he shrieked and shook, sending billions of insects flying in all directions. Overcome by a sudden wave of dizziness, Sarn fell. Before his feet hit a floor free of insects, he bent his knees to absorb the impact. But his earth magic kicked in the instant before he landed, and the stone floor turned springy. Sarn sank into it and tipped forward toward a nearby crate. At the last minute, he twisted and missed a date with unconsciousness by mere inches. Sarn landed on his side so he didn't squash his son. Rand patted him down. Are you hurt? No, just a little lightheaded. Sarn sat up and almost blacked out. He blinked until the gray haze cleared, but Jallister had either stopped talking or fled the area. Sarn cursed and tried to rise, but Rand held tightly to him, and his son's scant weight overbalanced him. Sarn planted his rear and waited for the dizziness to fade. What now? Rand rested his head on Sarn's back. We get out of here. But how they do that eluded Sarn as he glared at the trapdoor 40 feet overhead. Too dizzy to climb, Sarn crawled to the nearest wall and hoped he could impersonate a spider again. All he needed was skin contact, and it should work. Before he tried, Sarn paused and rested his head on the wall. He'd play spider when he felt less lightheaded. Magic, or maybe it was the mountain, decided for him. Green light leaked out of his eyes and inched up the wall and across the ceiling. A detailed image of the rope contraction balled up at the trapdoor's corner flashed across Sarn's mind, along with a silent query. What now? His magic had asked a good question. Sarn studied the bundle. Please let that be a net. Papa, what are you doing? Rand squirmed out of his makeshift harness and stood next to him. I'm trying to figure out how to unhook it. Sarn pointed at the trapdoor. Sarn produced a slingshot from his pocket. After he lined up a shot, Rand fired. The first projectile missed by a handspan, but the second, third, and fourth struck the bundle, jiggling it and revealing the problem. I think the damn thing is caught on the door. As Sarn realized this, so did his magic, and it lifted the trapdoor so the net cascaded down. Do we climb now? Rand bounced in anticipation. Yes. Sarn pulled his boots on and used the wall to help him rise. Thank fate something had worked out in his favor. The bottom of the net dangled 10 feet from the ground, and he was 6'6". Escaping was no longer a problem. Climb as quickly and carefully as you can. Sarn held Rand above his head, and his grinning son grabbed hold of the net. Its square holes were wide enough to fit an adult's boot, but Rand scampered up the net, enjoying the climb. It was the first bright spot in the debacle this morning had turned into. As soon as Rand had climbed a few feet, Sarn jumped and seized a handful of the net. His body protested when he chinned himself up, but he ignored it. He felt a key apply itself to the lock on the storeroom door, and his sixth sense warned of the hasp's imminent release. Damn, he'd hoped for a longer head start. Sarn reached the top as the door handle jiggled. He swung himself up and gathered the net into a bundle. Rand reached out to help him. They left the net bunched up on the floor. With luck, Dirk and company wouldn't figure out where they'd gone for a while. Rand tapped his shoulder. Where are we? Where indeed? Sarn closed his eyes, shuddering their glow, and reached for his map, only to find it blank. Rand leaned into his leg, shivering in the sudden darkness, and he rested a hand on his son's head to reassure him. Had they escaped one danger only to climb into another? Sarn let his senses stray from his side, but they sent back no information. He gave up on invisibility and opened his eyes. But as their emerald glow increased, so did the chamber. Not helpful. This cavern stood inside a mountain, so there were walls. Fate only knew where, though. Why me? Why today? With a shake of his head, Sarn shelved those non-productive thoughts for later. Why is it so dark? Rand gripped Sarn's pant leg and tugged on it. Because there are no Lumiere crystals here. Sarn clamped a hand to his wapes to prevent his trousers from falling. Why? Why indeed? The Litharians had been obsessed with that luminous stone. Lumiere crystals striped every level because the mountain had rich deposits of them everywhere except here. There must be a reason for the lack. But was it germane to their current circumstance? Probably not. I don't know. Sarn turned, searching for a door, a tunnel, somewhere to go. Every hour added more ill-fitting pieces to an already complicated puzzle, but he never gave up, so he picked a direction. Can we do it again? Rand asked. Do what? Sarn glanced at his son. Had the boy lost his mind? The climbing part. I liked it. A smile tugged at Rand's lips, but it slid away as the darkness pressed in around them, contracting the green nimbus cast by Sarn's eyes. Was it getting darker in here? Sarn turned to check, but it was hard to tell. The amount of light his eyes put out varied in intensity depending on his magic's whims, not his. Another time, maybe. You promise? Sarn sighed. Sure, someday we'll climb something. Though the next time, there'd be sunshine, too. His son deserved that. Food now? Yeah, as soon as I figure out where the hell we are. Sarn triggered his mental map, but the damn thing was busy sketching in what little information he had about this cavern. Sarn bit off a curse. What was the point in having magic if half the time it ignored him? Sarn took his son's hand and led Rand away from the trapdoor. Best if they put some distance between them and it. Dirk and his cronies were coming, but they were still some distance away. Come on, let's walk a bit and see where this ramp goes. Rand followed, but the darkness oppressed him. "Can I have a light? I won't drop it." Sarn heard the quaver in his son's voice and removed his pendant. The crystal had been a gift, and it had lit many dark places before his eyes had glowed. As Sarn held the finger-long crystal up, it threw a radiant white sphere around his son, and Rand relaxed. Something nagged at Sarn as he stared at his pendant. It was one of the rarest types of Lumiere crystals. All other types of Lumiere crystals could be bought or stolen, but not the one dangling from his hand. It could only be given from one bearer to the next. Since nearly all the wood in Shiari had been enchanted to resist fire, Lumiere crystals were the light source of choice. Everyone carried around nuggets of it. Lumiere crystals were so ubiquitous, no one would bother to steal them. But he hadn't sensed any Lumiere crystals at either murder site yesterday. That lack bothered Sarn. It meant something. Rand reached for the pendant swinging above his head. So too did a disembodied hand as the ghost boy tried to manifest again. His spectral parts popped into existence and drifted towards the ghost's torso. Each time a limb rejoined, a shadow scythed through the connection, breaking it. Sarn gasped at the ghost. It was at the heart of everything that had gone wrong in the last day and a half. How could he fix it? Sarn stretched up on his toes and snatched the pendant. As the leather thong slid through Sarn's fingers, nausea walloped him, and he doubled over. Rand raised the crystal like a tiny sword, and its white glow flared, driving away the shadow, knifing the ghost to pieces. Rand backpedaled in shock and collided with Sarn's legs. The ghost boy fixed grateful eyes on them, then he also vanished. "What was that?" Rand pointed at where the ghost and the shadow had been. "That's what I'm trying to figure out." After they got out of there, of course, Sarn took his son's hand and froze. 5 Lumiere crystals headed this way in the hands of the 5 men he'd fought before. Sarn bit off a curse and hurried in the opposite direction. At his side, Rand turned the pendant in his hands, fingering the grooves carved into its widest face. Sarn braced himself for a barrage of questions, but Rand stayed quiet, and his sudden quietude unnerved Sarn. His son was a talker, like his brother. No doubt their predicament preyed on this boy's mind, and that was his fault. Sarn ground his teeth in frustration. How could he help a ghost when he struggled to safeguard his own son? The question pursued Sarn as he sought a way out of this endless cavern. "What is that? Why is it glowing?" Rand pointed at a welcome sight, sunlight knifing through the dark. Relief made Sarn giddy, and laughter fizzed just under the surface. "We finally found a wall, which makes that a door. With luck, it was their exit." Was it extending brilliant hands? Sarn rubbed his eyes, but the image refused to fade. "We can go outside through there?" Rand ventured, sounding hopeful. Sarn nodded, distracted by the luminous white filaments extending from his body. They drank in the sunlight while his gut cramped with hunger. For a moment, everything grayed out. Sarn leaned into the wall as the world rocked around him. What magic was this? It wasn't the rock-loving green one lighting up his eyes. What magic was white? Before everything blackened, the filaments receded, and Sarn stopped his floorward slide. "Papa?" Rand tugged on his pant leg until he received a response. "I'm okay." Sarn ruffled his son's hair, distracting the boy for a heartbeat. Rand scowled as he finger-combed his locks back into place. "Can we go out that way?" "Maybe." Sarn played the glow of his eyes over it, but found no handle or hasp. He put his shoulder to the door and pushed, but it refused to budge. "It's locked from the other side. We have to find another way out." Could he pick the lock from the reverse side with his magic? Sarn's head hurt just thinking about that. "I know you're up here. There's no escape from this level. Come out and talk to me," Dirk shouted, ending Sarn's internal debate. "We won't harm you or your son, I swear it." Only a fool would believe that. "Give me the pendant." Sarn held out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Rand handed it over. Sarn settled the pendant under his tunic again, and the light cut off, leaving them bathed in the green glow of his eyes until he closed them. Rand clung to him, scared of the dark, as he led the boy to a stalagmite. They crouched behind it, and Sarn pulled his shivering son into a one-armed embrace. "I'll get us out of here," Sarn whispered to his son, who nodded. "Just be as silent as a sleeping stone." An image of 13 rock piles superimposed itself over the settling green star poking at Sarn's closed eyes, and the image faded. What had he just seen? A memory or a magic-born hallucination? And why did everything come in sets of 13? "Come out and talk to me." Hell no. Sarn tightened his arm around his son. He still had a fix on Dirk and his men. The fools never should have let him touch them. He had maybe 5 minutes before they converged on this location. "Update," demanded his magic as it pushed against his clothes. Sarn yearned for the cool touch of stone and the deep well of information flowing through it. No. If he gave in, he'd black out and leave his son vulnerable. Sarn held tight to his son until the urge to strip off his clothes and embrace the stalagmite hiding them abated. Rand stood on tiptoe and whispered into Sarn's good ear. "What now?" We find a way out of here, preferably before Sarn lost control of his magic. Hunger eroded his concentration, making his mind malleable to the magic's manipulation. Sarn rubbed his aching head, then resumed studying his map. It didn't line up properly with the levels above, since the mountain tapered, and he still wasn't sure about their exact location. Rand laid his head on Sarn's thigh, and he stroked the boy's greasy locks. Where had Dirk and his friends come from? If he could find where they'd entered, they could leave the same way. Distant chatter startled Sarn. He lowered his hood, put his good ear to the wall, and concentrated. How could he hear the door wardens from here? They should be on the other side of the mountain, unless he was wrong about their location. Magic trickled out of his ear and crawled up the wall, dragging his consciousness with it until he jerked his head away from the wall and broke the connection. "What is that?" Rand asked. "What is what?" Sarn cracked his eyes open and played a thin beam of green light over his son's fingers. Under them, a square block sunk into the wall. "What did you do?" Rand shrugged and backed away as a section of the wall swung in. Sarn smiled as he opened his eyes all the way, and their emerald glow revealed a staircase twisting into the darkness, of course. The Litharians were a race of paranoid misanthropes. They had hidden many rooms, traps, tunnels, and staircases all over the mountain. Sarn patted Rand on the back. "Good job, you found an exit." "No more stairs. Now I'll never eat." Rand kicked the bottom step, then squeaked as a rat darted past his foot. It was the spy from earlier. Was it headed toward its mistress? "No more rats." Rand fixed scared eyes on Sarn and clutched his pants when he started up the stairs in pursuit. Those tiny hands stopped Sarn. Rand wasn't growing up on the streets like he had. "I'm sorry, but we have to go up." Sarn waved to the stairs. "The rats won't hurt us, but those men will." Dirk chose that moment to comment. "Not true. We just want to talk to you." "And sell him into slavery. No, thank you." Sarn's hands tightened into fists. Indentured servitude was better. At least it offered the promise of freedom when he'd paid off his debts. A warning flashed on Sarn's map, and he turned in time to deflect a punch with his forearm. These guys were so predictable. "Papa!" "Go! Run up the stairs. I'll be right behind you." A fist slammed into Sarn's side, sending him crashing into the stairwell. Magic softened his landing, saving Sarn from a concussion. He sprawled across 6 steps and willed his frozen son to move. His body only blocked half the staircase, leaving plenty of room for Dirk to climb past him. "Leave my son alone!" Sarn seized Dirk's ankle and twisted it, bringing the man down. "Get out of my way! I'll grab the little imp!" shouted one of Dirk's men. The whitest one, Villar. Sarn recognized the voice as he latched onto Dirk's waist and yanked the man down and away. Dirk strained to reach Rand, but the boy ducked around a bend in the stairway, and Dirk's hands closed on air. Sarn rolled and pulled Dirk under him. On top now, Sarn punched Dirk. "You lied." "Not about hurting the boy. For God's sake, he's Beku's son." And sincerity might have softened Dirk's eyes for a second before the situation registered. Dirk smiled and went for the jugular, but Sarn had expected that, so he fended off the chokehold with a well-placed elbow. An arm wrapped around Sarn's throat from behind and squeezed, reminding him there were 4 more combatants. Not again. This was the 3rd time this move had caught him unawares in the last 48 hours. With his luck, it was Villar reprising his earlier role. Thank fate none of the Rangers were here to see this, or Sarn would be the laughingstock of their order. Dirk punched Sarn, and he saw stars for a moment, long enough to lose his chokehold on the magic. Green light clawed at his eyes and his skin, seeking a way out. Instead of accepting its help, Sarn kicked Dirk, and bones crunched. He couldn't see where his foot had landed, because his vision had contracted to the hairy arm choking him. Rand screamed, and his terror paused the fight. "I'm coming, son!" Sarn got his feet under him and slammed the back of his head into the man choking him. Pain radiated out from the blow, and Sarn staggered when his dazed captor released him. He tripped over several legs and landed on the stairs beside Dirk, who gripped his broken arm. Where was his son? Rand screamed again, and the terror shredded Sarn, leaving no room for speech, only action. Before the strange détente ended, he crawled toward his son, dividing his attention between what was above and the men below. Magic leaked out of his hands and charged up the stairs like an army of glowing green ants. When they found his son, they wrapped a shield around the shuddering boy, but some of his magic continued past Rand, seeking the source of his son's fear. Information punched Sarn, and the world grayed out as he pulled his son into his arms. He lay there, too dizzy to move, while rats poured down the stairs and over his body. Each little foot was a caress. Rand screamed and cried into his chest, but Sarn was with the magic, flowing upwards, through the channels the Litharians had made, heading toward... "Papa!" Sarn blinked, and his awareness receded until it stopped at his skin. "I'm sorry." "It's okay. We're okay. Look what the rats did." Rand pointed, but Sarn had to lever himself up to see. He laughed at the 5 men screaming and swatting at the rats climbing their bodies. You were right. Rand leaned into him. 13 rats broke off their attack and blurred as they converged on the threshold, revealing Ratwoman. Wiry hair framed a doughy, unfinished face. She looked like a clumsy child's attempt at doll-making, not a living being. Clad in a cloak stitched together from rat skins, she stood there, staring with those mirrored eyes, but they weren't empty. A spark of personality fired and caught in their silver depths before she turned. Thank you, Rand waved to her. Why did you help us? Sarn struggled to his feet and swayed when the world took a step to the right without him. He leaned into the wall, enclosing the stairwell. 13 rats had formed her. That could not be a coincidence. Somehow she was part of this. But the lipless woman remained silent as she touched the wall and the secret panel closed off the stairwell. Who are you? Sarn asked the blank wall separating them. She helped us. I know. I just wish I knew why she helped us and why she spied on us, and many other things too disturbing to mention to his son. Sarn pulled himself together, and he blinked as his map disappeared. A yellow arrow pointed at a welcome spot, the middle kitchen. All he had to do was climb 120 steps. Thank fate for small miracles. When did she spy on us? Rand waved the question away. When didn't matter, but why did? Was Ratwoman an ally? How did she fit into the general weirdness of the last day and a half? None of it made any sense, and he needed to fix that soon. I'm hungry. Rand rubbed his belly. I know, I still owe you breakfast. We'll get breakfast now? Yes, but you have to climb for it. Rand's shoulders slumped. I hate stairs. You and me both. Come on, stairs are good for you. They'll give you muscular legs. Mama said that about milk. Sarn fought a smile. Yes, they both do. Unconvinced, Rand kicked the step again. Look, you wanted to climb some more? Sarn gestured to the stairs. No, I wanted to climb nets, not stairs. Nets are fun. Stairs are boring. Rand folded his arms over his chest and scowled. Stairs are all I've got. Come on. Resigned to his fate, Rand mounted the stairs, and Sarn followed. Every step away from here unraveled the secrecy protecting his son, and that was unacceptable. Sarn's hands curled into fists at his side. He refused to lose the boy who gave his life meaning. Dirk had better keep his mouth shut. And that's the end of chapter 21. So the fight scenes, I think, in this chapter are a little bit better, a little bit less confusing. I'm still not great at writing them, but this one wasn't as difficult to write as the other one. This one was, Sarn is mostly distracted by his magic anyway, so writing any fight scene from his perspective is hard because he's really not paying attention to what's going on with that. His magic is usually distracting him. And yes, Rand does get fed. There's many scenes of Rand getting meals together in the different books. Usually it's a funny scene, something that breaks the tension. So we will have a nice scene for them soon. Maybe even the next chapter. You'll have to tune in next week to find out. And Curse Breaker Enchanted, if you want to read ahead or read along, is available as an ebook, as a paperback, as a hardcover, as a digitally narrated audiobook. And so is the entire rest of the series. So if you want to go on, there's currently 9 books in the series and a whole mess of prequels and companion series and all sorts of other fun things. They're just so fun to write about. I am currently writing their 10th book, and I've got about 24 chapters on it, but I am pausing it a little bit because I want to go back to the 4th book in the Ramnu Larkspur series and get that moving before they change their mind or do something else crazy and make it like even more impossible to finish that book and get them to do the one thing that they've needed to do in that book. So I'm just afraid if I leave them alone too long, they'll never get them on task again. So I know Rand and Sarn will behave if I leave them alone for a week or two. They'll generally not go off and do anything too crazy. And all those books are available from Amazon, Apple, Google Play, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Drive-Thru Fiction, and other places, as well as my own website. So, yeah, check them out. And I'll see you next week. Again, I am indie fantasy author Melinda Kucsera. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.